Buying your first house hack is one of the smartest financial moves you can make. It can help you lower your living expenses, build wealth, and even reach financial independence. But there are a lot of pitfalls along the way that can cost you thousands of dollars and turn your dream of financial freedom into a complete nightmare. In this video, I'm breaking down the 10 biggest mistakes first-time house hackers make, and more importantly, how you can avoid them. And trust me, mistake number 10 is one that even experienced investors sometimes overlook. So make sure you stick around until the end of the video. If we're just meeting, my name is Vitaly Volpov. I'm a real estate investor with almost 200 rental units in my portfolio. I'm also a licensed attorney and a part owner of a real estate brokerage in upstate New York. My goal with this channel is to share my experiences in real estate and help 1,000 other like-minded people reach financial independence through real estate investing. Jumping right in, mistake number 1 is getting your financing wrong. This can actually take a number of different forms. I'll give you some examples. Choosing the wrong loan type. There are several different owner-occupied loan programs that are offered by banks. Conventional, FHA, FHA 203K, VA, and so on. Each of them have slightly different terms, costs, and qualifications. Borrowers can also choose different loan lengths. Most banks offer 30-year and 15-year loans, but other options may also be available. You want to pick the loan that best fits your personal situation. If you don't, you could be costing yourself more money than you need to. A common mistake which is related to not selecting the right loan is not understanding or knowing how much money you will actually need to have saved in order to close. This includes not understanding what types of closing costs, prepaid fees, and down payment requirements the particular loan you choose comes with. The worst feeling in the world is getting your offer accepted and then going through the whole buying process only to be told at some point before closing that you will need to show up with more money than you have in your bank account. Another common mistake when it comes to financing is not shopping around for the best mortgage rate. According to a LendingTree.com study from June 2024, borrowers who compare mortgage offers can save an average of $212 per month, totaling over $2,500 annually. Over a 30-year loan, this amounts to more than $76,000 in savings. In states with higher home prices such as California, New Jersey, and Hawaii, potential savings are even greater, exceeding $100,000 over the life of the loan. LendingTree also found that 54% of buyers who responded to their survey did not continue to shop around and simply took the first mortgage offer presented to them, most likely missing out on huge potential savings. Another common financing mistake is inadvertently causing a significant drop in your credit score after receiving the initial loan commitment, but before the actual closing. This can happen as a result of missed payments on some existing debts or making some other big purchases on credit. If your credit score and debt-to-income ratio was already close to the lender's approval threshold, doing one of these things could completely sink your mortgage approval. Most lenders run your credit one last time shortly before closing, and if they see that it dropped or that you acquired a bunch of new debt, they can revoke the approval and leave you without financing and unable to close. So what can you do to avoid making these financing mistakes? Well, first of all, you should research and understand the different loan types and figure out which one may be the best choice for your situation. If you're not sure, ask questions of your potential lenders and mortgage brokers. You should meet with multiple lenders and come prepared to ask questions. You should be able to spot a good loan officer or mortgage broker fairly quickly. They will be knowledgeable and helpful. They won't push one thing or another on you, but will patiently answer all of your questions and go over all the costs and terms with you. I would suggest taking notes when you speak with them and ask follow-up questions. You should also ask each loan officer and mortgage broker you speak with to give you their best interest rate and terms in writing. Then try shopping those rates and terms around to other lenders and see if others can beat them. Make them earn your business and then select the best option. And of course, it goes without saying, don't do anything that could possibly hurt your creditworthiness before you close on the purchase of your property. Pay all your debts on time and don't run up a huge credit card bill. Mistake number 2 is choosing the wrong realtor or choosing not to have a realtor represent you at all. Yes, I know it's pretty fashionable to dunk on realtors right now. The common perception seems to be that they are not needed and that they get paid for doing very little. While this may be true in some cases and with some types of properties, when it comes to rental properties, I think this criticism is dead wrong. Yes, most realtors who typically deal with single-family owner-occupied properties will not be as helpful to a buyer looking for example, a 4-unit property where they will live in one of the units and rent out the others. But that's why you have to pick the right realtor to represent you. The right realtor, in my opinion, is someone who has helped clients buy and sell numerous multifamily properties in the same area where you're trying to buy. Ideally, they will also own rental properties themselves and will have followed the house hacking strategy. The right agent will understand the types of properties that make for good house hacks, the locations in the local market where house hacking a rental property makes the most sense, what the market rent for the units in the property can be, and so on. Will having your own agent necessarily result in you being able to get a lower price on the property? Well, maybe, but that's not their main value to you as a first-time house hacker. Their value is in allowing you to tap into their knowledge and experience to avoid buying the wrong property for the wrong price. When I bought my first duplex and house hacked it in 2011, I could have certainly represented myself. In fact, I could have even been paid a commission by the seller as if I was my own agent. This is because in my home state of New York, a licensed attorney can seek a share of the commission from the listing agent's commission as long as the agreement between the listing agent and the seller allows for it. But I didn't represent myself because at the time I had little understanding of what I was doing. Yes, I read a few books on real estate investing. Yes, I had a general idea of the type of property I wanted to buy and the general location of where I wanted to buy it, but I was far from an expert in what made a good deal. Because I was honest with myself and because I understood that, I hired a buyer's agent to represent me. He did an excellent job. He was knowledgeable, patient, and honest. He was a house hacker himself and had over a decade of experience in real estate. He gave me level-headed advice when I almost allowed my own emotions to get the better of me during the search and negotiation process. And he was able to help me find and purchase the right house for a great price. I learned a lot during that buying process, and I am grateful for having that real estate agent by my side as I went through it. So the point that I'm making is that not having your own agent is a mistake. Relying on the listing agent to represent you and the seller is also a mistake because they will not, by the nature of that kind of arrangement, have undivided loyalty. They will not have your best interest in mind. By the same token, hiring your cousin Bob, who does real estate part-time, or your neighbor's friend who specializes in condos on the other side of town are all big mistakes. Avoid these mistakes by having a solid, knowledgeable buyer's agent on your side, and the whole process will be a lot easier, more enjoyable, and ultimately more profitable for you. Trust me. Mistake number 3 is buying in the wrong location. What constitutes the wrong location may take on many different forms. It could be buying a property in the neighborhood where you don't feel safe parking your car at night and walking to your front door. Or it could be buying a property which won't appreciate very much because the school district is poorly ranked or due to other negative neighborhood characteristics which you can't control. It could be the wrong location because of the unfavorable local landlord and tenant laws. Things like rent control or especially onerous requirements and restrictions on the eviction process can also make the location unappealing. The location could also simply be wrong for you, because it is too far from work or family or daily conveniences that you can't live without. All these issues I've listed can easily turn a deal that looks great on paper into the worst purchase of your life. So how do you avoid making these mistakes? First and foremost, lean on the knowledge and experience of your real estate agent. If you picked a good one, they will steer you away from the bad locations with these types of issues. Of course, you should always trust but verify. Do some research on your own to confirm what the agent is telling you. If you're not personally familiar with the area, search online for information about an area's crime rates, school district quality, economic growth, population growth, and so on. Visit the areas you're considering in person. Drive through the streets at different times of day and night and note what you see. Be an informed investor. That should allow you to avoid buying in the wrong location. If you guys are getting value from this video so far, please do me a favor and hit the like button. Also, if you're finding this video helpful, I've put all the information I discuss in this video into an easy to refer to PDF, which you can get by following the link in the description below. No charge, just click on the link, put in your email address, and I will send it to you completely free. Okay, mistake number 4 is failing to perform proper due diligence on the property. Some examples of this are choosing not to hire a professional inspector and assuming that the property is turnkey, or blindly assuming that you can handle any repair issues that may come up after purchasing the property. A due diligence mistake is also failing to review the existing lease agreements and any other relevant information or documents regarding the property. Things like tax assessments, garbage bills, HOA rules and restrictions, property condition disclosures, and so on. Why might looking at this information matter? Well, when it comes to lease agreements, if an agreement hasn't yet expired, you as the buyer are required to honor the terms that the seller and the tenant had agreed to. If you never check what the current lease or leases say, you may be agreeing to continue renting to a tenant at an extremely low rent or for significantly longer than you may want to. This is especially important in cases where the unit you are planning to occupy is currently occupied by a tenant. If that tenant's lease doesn't end for another 8 months after you close, that is a very big problem for you. Not only because you'll need to find another place to live until they move, but also because you will likely be in violation of the terms of your owner-occupied financing with your lender. Tax and garbage assessments can also be much higher than the MLS listing originally led you to believe. HOA rules may restrict how much and under what circumstances you can rent out the property, and so on. Another example of a big due diligence no-no as a first-time house hacker is failing to perform a title search or offering to buy a property using a quitclaim deed or a similar type of deed that comes with no warranties. In either of these circumstances, you're putting your ownership of the building at risk. The way you avoid these mistakes is by committing to the following: never waiving structural inspections and instead using a licensed inspector to help you assess the physical condition of the property. Reading all of the bills and documents relating to the property that are provided by the seller and the listing agent, and having your agent and attorney review them as well for potential issues. Using an attorney and a title company to run a title search, which should show any outstanding municipal bills and assessments, and purchasing an owner's title insurance policy. And lastly, buying the property using what is called a warranty deed or a similar type of deed which is used in your state. Mistake number 5 is underestimating the true costs of maintaining and repairing a rental property. One of the most frequently overlooked expenses by both new and somewhat experienced rental property investors is something called capital expenditures or CapEx. This expense refers to the cost of replacing physical components of a rental property which reach the end of their useful lives. It is different from repairs and maintenance because when you are spending money on a capital expenditure, it is not to fix something that is broken, but rather to replace it altogether because it is no longer able to be fixed. Examples include big-ticket items such as HVAC systems, plumbing, electrical, roofs, driveways, siding, windows, and similar components. When these things need to be replaced, it typically costs thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. Most investors do not think about these expenses and don't budget for them in their income and expense calculations for a property before they buy. This is a big mistake because these expenses are real and they will occur at some point in the future. When they do, they can easily wipe out months or even years of so-called positive cash flow from a rental property. While these costs are not frequent, they are very much predictable and should be budgeted for. An easy rule of thumb that a lot of experienced investors follow is to take a certain percentage of the gross rents that a property brings in and set that amount aside to cover these large expenses. The older a property is, the more expensive the capital expenditures are likely to be for you because the components of the property are likely older as well and will likely need more expensive overhauls than components of a newer property. Another big mistake in this category is buying a fixer-upper without fully understanding and appreciating the rehab costs and the timelines involved in the big renovation project. Most people have the perception cultivated by rehab and flipping shows on HGTV that a rehab project is fun and exciting, and that regardless of the challenges along the way, the property will always be worth more at the end of the rehab than what you paid for it, including the renovation costs. And this is simply not true. Speaking from my own personal experience, almost every single large rehab project I have taken on had gone over time and over budget. Luckily, my business partner is very savvy when it comes to construction, and he has handled the majority of renovation management. But even he isn't always perfect. There have been several projects that we have taken on over the last 5 years that ended up net negative. And this is with us using our own contractor crews and us using all the tricks of the trade to keep the costs down. If you're a brand new investor, I would strongly discourage you from taking on a huge renovation project right off the get-go. Your goal should not be to hit a home run on your first at-bat. Instead, what you want and need is a solid double or even a single to build your confidence and get comfortable with how the game is played. If you are going to take on renovations, please make sure that either they are cosmetic only or that you have the right team of people around you and the resources to handle any unforeseen problems. In short, the best ways to avoid the mistakes in this category is to correctly budget for the capital expenditures in addition to all the other expenses involved, and to stay away from large rehab projects when you're just starting out. Mistake number 6 is selecting a property with a bad layout or unit selection. Examples of this include choosing a property with tiny bedrooms, or a property which has a bunch of pass-through rooms, which the seller calls bedrooms, but in reality they can't be legally called that since you have to walk through them in order to get to other parts of the house. Another example are tiny or awkwardly laid out kitchens. Think galley kitchens, or kitchens where the refrigerator is in another room from the stove. Steep or narrow staircases, narrow doorways, tight corners, and so on. All of these things make the property less functional and less desirable to potential tenants and potential future buyers. Another way you can go wrong in this category is by choosing the wrong unit in the property to occupy as your primary residence. This is more about how your personal situation and needs will or will not fit with what the property has to offer and with your ultimate desire to grow wealth by renting out the other part of the property. For some of you, it may make perfect sense to take the studio apartment and rent out the other 2 larger apartments in the building for maximum income. But for others with a family, that wouldn't make much sense. If you do have to occupy that nice 3-bedroom unit yourself, will the numbers still make sense if you can only rent out the other smaller units? These are all things you should be thinking about as you are viewing potential properties and considering whether to place an offer. The best way to avoid the mistakes in this category is to, again, rely on and work closely with your real estate agent, as well as networking with other real estate investors in your area by joining local REI meetup groups. The thing you want to get from them is a sense of what type of unit layouts will work best and will be the easiest to rent out and keep occupied in your area. You should also apply your own common sense and don't ignore any reservations you might have about what you see when you walk through the properties. If a layout would be difficult, awkward, or unappealing to you as an occupant of an apartment, it probably will also be that to your potential tenants. Try to put yourself in the shoes of potential tenants and ask whether the physical characteristics of the apartment would work for you. Mistake number 7 is overpaying for the property. This one seems obvious, but it's actually much more subtle than you might think, especially in a competitive seller's market. The most important thing here is to remain patient and to not get too attached to any particular property. Just because a property may be physically perfect and exactly what you're looking for doesn't mean that you should pay more for it than what is reasonable. Getting impatient and trying to win a bidding war with other buyers competing for the same property is the easiest way to overpay. Getting emotionally invested is not what you want when you're trying to make big financial decisions. The way you avoid this is by having your agent serve as your advisor and your buffer. This is another reason why it's critical to pick a solid agent who will act in an unbiased fashion and take a bird's eye view to the situation. If you find yourself getting too caught up in the emotion, he or she can pull you back by making sure you see the facts more clearly. For example, they can show you data on comparable sales for properties like the one you're considering. And if none of those sales are anywhere near the ballpark of what you would have to pay for this property in order to get it, maybe you should reconsider. While overpaying a little bit is probably not as bad of a mistake over the long term, there's no need to put yourself behind the 8 ball unnecessarily. Be patient and try to find situations and properties with lower competition. Try to go after expired listings, for sale by owner listings, back on the market listings, and listings that have been inadvertently mismanaged by their listing agents. Also, if your agent is really tuned in to the investor market in your area, he should be able to find some off-market and pocket listings where the competition is not as fierce. The bottom line is approach the purchase more as a business decision and less as a personal one, and you'll be able to avoid overspending. Mistake number 8 is not screening tenants properly and failing to use the right lease. Despite the abundance of education and online tools, a sizable number of landlords still do not bother to screen their tenants the way they should. According to a survey from 2021, 16% of landlords never conduct criminal background checks, and approximately 10% do not assess an applicant's credit history. Don't be one of those landlords. In today's day and age, there's absolutely no excuse for not doing proper tenant screening. I've made several videos on this topic, so you can check them out on my channel, but 2 very good screening tools that I have found and use are rentprep.com and easylandlordforms.com. RentPrep's sole focus is on tenant screening, while Easy Landlord Forms actually offers quite a bit more, which I'll talk about in a second. You can find links to both of these platforms as well as the videos going over their features and benefits in the description of this video. With regard to lease agreements, a lot of landlords do not optimize or customize their leases and do not update them regularly as the applicable laws undergo changes. This, of course, is also a big mistake. A lease that was perfectly fine 2 years ago may now be completely outdated as a result of various changes in the law. It goes without saying that you want to make sure that the lease you're using is as ironclad as it can possibly be, because it is the document which determines the rights and responsibilities that you and your tenant have to each other. One way to avoid making the mistake of using an inaccurate or outdated lease is by hiring an attorney to create and revise your leases for you as time goes on. Obviously, this option is pricey, but it is better than ignoring the issue altogether. Another option is to purchase attorney review lease templates. For example, you can get a state-specific lease agreement for any state from biggerpockets.com if you sign up for their Pro membership. However, those lease templates are not reviewed by BiggerPockets attorneys very frequently. So it is possible that even though you think you have the most up-to-date agreement, it may not be. Another option that I talked about in my last video is to utilize a platform which offers ongoing updates and customizations. The best one that I'm aware of right now is called EasyLandlordForms.com. Their leases are attorney reviewed and state specific, and they continuously update them on the changes in each state's laws. They also offer tenant screening as well as rent collection, plus they also offer a ton of other landlord and tenant related documents and forms, as well as articles and forum questions and answers. Check out that video for a full breakdown, and if you're interested in signing up, use my affiliate link and the discount code VITALI10 to get 10% off their already low prices. Mistake number 9 is mismanaging tenant relationships. This can happen in a number of ways, including failing to abide by all the state and federal fair housing laws, being too lenient or trying to be friends with your tenants, not setting clear rules and boundaries from day one, and delaying responses to maintenance requests, causing resentment and turnover. How can you avoid making these mistakes? Well, you can start by educating yourself about the fair housing laws and other landlord and tenant related laws in your area. Many websites, both governmental and private, provide information about the applicable laws. It's also probably a good idea to speak with other more experienced investors in your area and ask them what laws and regulations affect them the most and which ones they are most concerned with. EasyLandlordForms.com is also a great resource for this. It has built-in tips and suggestions that are state-specific on all of their forms and leases. As I mentioned, they also have numerous landlord and tenant-related articles and forum question and answers. In addition to learning about the applicable laws, you should treat your rental like a business that it is. Treat your lease like the governing document of your relationship with your tenants. Stick to the terms and don't deviate. Be polite and kind, but firm with your tenants. If you ever have a question about what to do in a particular situation, the first thing you should do is refer to your lease. A well-written lease should provide an answer to 99% of issues that can arise during a landlord and tenant relationship. Lastly, when tenants submit maintenance requests, be responsive to their concerns and fix the issues as soon as possible. This will go a long way to having a great working relationship with your tenants. Mistake number 10 is one that even experienced investors sometimes make, and that is not thinking about an exit strategy. Buying a house hack without thinking about the near-term and long-term goals is a common mistake. Will the best use of your rental be as a long-term, mid-term, or short-term rental? When the time comes to move out, will you keep it and place a tenant in the unit you occupied, or sell it? Will your property even work as a non-owner occupied rental property if and when you move out? If the rent from all of the units will not cover all of the expenses, then your only exit strategy once you move out is to sell. Personally, I would not buy a property like that because I prefer to have more than one exit strategy. So how do you avoid making this mistake? First, before you place an offer on a property, you should calculate how much it would rent for if all of the units were rented to tenants. Then, calculate all of the property's expenses and subtract them from the rents to determine whether or not this would be a cash flow positive deal. In order to perform this calculation, you'll need to have a sense of what comparable apartments rent for in the area, and you'll also need to know as much about the property's expense structure as possible. The following list of expenses is typical, but other expenses may also apply in your particular case: mortgage, taxes, insurance, water, sewer, garbage, landlord-paid utilities, repairs, maintenance, capital expenditures, and vacancy. Some of these expenses are going to be exact numbers, which you can figure out from public records and information provided by the seller. Others will be reasonable estimates based on the age, size, and physical characteristics of the property. I've done other videos on my channel going in more depth on the various expenses and how I would go about estimating them, so I'm not going to get into that here. But the main takeaway is that the property needs to at least break even after you move out and rent the unit you occupy. If it doesn't, then moving out and keeping it would not be a viable exit strategy, and that should play into your decision making when it comes to making an offer. These are the 10 biggest mistakes that first-time house hackers make and how to avoid them. In the near future, I'm going to be rolling out a free, comprehensive house hacking course inside my free community on school.com. I'm going to cover every part of the house hack buying process from A to Z, everything from financing to finding and analyzing potential properties, to placing offers, successfully closing, and screening and managing tenants. Everything that I learned about the best way to get started in real estate, all the tricks, and all the insight 100% free. If you want to be a part of it and get early access to the course modules as I roll them out, come and join me in the House Hack Mastery community on school.com. Connect with me there, ask questions, and let me know what areas of the process you would like me to focus on in the course. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.